Hi everyone, so this is Princeton Startup TV, episode number 5. I'm Arman, and today finally we have Joe Perla. Joe is the founder of Princeton Entrepreneurship Club. He is the former CTO of Sticky Bits and Turntable, the great startups you heard of. He is the founder and CTO of Labmeeting. Really the symbol of entrepreneurship is Princeton, really. We finally have him on the program. Here the episode is coming to you from Princeton, New Jersey at this time, no longer California, no longer New York. Welcome, Joe.
Hi, Arm.
So, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Miami, Florida. Very sunny weather all year.
Right.
And not a lot of entrepreneurship there. So I didn't really get into that until college.
So, did you go to high school in Florida, I guess?
Yeah.
Right. So, and I guess that's your passion to, I guess, Silicon Valley weather.
Yeah.
in essence. How did you get started as an entrepreneur? Was it your freshman year or? No,
actually, well, yes, a little bit in freshman year, but it didn't get. So I started actually in molecular biology department here at Princeton.
So that was your initial major, right?
That was my initial major. And then I actually started being attracted to finance. So I took a lot of econ classes, and I became an ORFE, which is financial engineering major. I went to all the Lehman Brothers and other talks and recruiting events. And that was very interesting, but I also felt like I wanted to be able to do more and provide more direct value. So in my freshman year, I linked up with Mick, Hagen, and Jeremy Johnson, and we started brainstorming about different ideas that we could do.
Mick was the guest of our first episode, if you guys remember.
Yeah, so we worked together pretty intensely on some different ideas. We won some business plan competitions.
So that was 2006, right?
2006, yeah. And that was really fun, but I wasn't quite ready to really be a full-time drop out of school entrepreneur. So I stayed in school and came back for my sophomore year. But I realized I still had the itch, and there was no one here. Jeremy and Mick dropped out, and there was no one here left who was doing entrepreneurship. There were 0 entrepreneurs on campus, basically, except for Ed Chow. Yeah. And my sophomore year, I said, I have to do a lot more to do this. So I started organizing events at Terrace Club and other places to get people to be more involved in entrepreneurship. And we've got a small group going. I had a big Princeton pitch event. We had over 50 people attend and give speeches.
Now it's an annual event?
Now it's in its, I guess, 4th year, 5th year, 6th year now. And that's a really fun event. And then I knew that I had to figure out something that wasn't finance. I ended up working at Bridgewater, which is the largest hedge fund in the world, and I realized that finance was not for me. And
that was summer 2007?
Yeah. Okay. So that was actually a very exciting summer in terms of finance. The market started crashing. Yeah. And a lot of quant funds lost a lot of money. So it's a very exciting time to be at Bridgewater. But I still realized that it just wasn't for me, and I wanted to create value more directly. So I decided to leave school, and I went to California, Silicon Valley, to start Labmeeting with a couple other guys from Harvard. And that was a really great experience. That's where I really learned all the technology that I know.
What was Labmeeting?
Labmeeting is a social network and search engine for scientists. It's also got a little bit of a Google Docs kind of thing for scientists. Basically, one thing that we did was every scientist has a profile on the site, kind of like Facebook. But scientists also manage all of their work, all of their papers, everything they read. They collaborate, they message each other all on the website. And our goal was to bring everything scientists do onto the web. Right now there are a lot of smaller companies that are trying to do one sliver of what we were doing. Like Mendeley is just doing papers, and there are other companies just managing lab equipment. And we were really doing the whole thing at once.
So what was the core product, when you just get started? What was the product you guys launched? How did it look like?
The initial product was just a Facebook kind of thing.
Yeah,
so just profiles. We found that people didn't jump on that at first. Next, we started moving toward having a whole search engine and a whole paper collection where you manage all the papers you read, and people had a lot more affinity to that. So people would upload thousands of papers that they read and label it and tag it and everything.
Did you go for a particular vertical, like all the researchers in, let's say, computer science or microbiology?
That's true. We did focus on biomedical researchers because they're the largest user base, and they also have the most money. Biomedical research is very well funded by the government.
How did you guys convince these guys to join Labmeeting and upload a profile?
Most scientists recognize the need. They just have a bunch of files on their desktop and they lose them and they can't find what they want.
So you basically went to, let's say, Stanford, I guess, talks and meet up with biology professors there, and
we did more scalable things like reach out to librarians.
I see.
Yeah, so librarians were really helpful. Like once they found out about it, they said, "This is great. Let me tell everybody." And once scientists found out about it, and especially the ones that didn't have a system, they would be very excited to use this and upload everything.
So they will upload, let's say, me as a scientist, I will upload all the papers I've written, and I can collaborate. I can find another researcher in a similar field.
Yeah.
And did you guys build some kind of a recommendation engine?
So we had we had the search engine, and then on top of that we had a recommendation engine. So based on a specific paper you're looking at, we recommend a set of other papers that were related to that. You have your lab. We have a concept of a lab on the website, so you can collaborate with your lab members. And if you share your papers with your other lab mates, then you can see what other papers they might have that would be of interest to you. People really like that feature as well.
Interesting. And then, so you spent a year there, right? 2007.
We spent over 2 years.
Over 2 years
working on that.
When did you come back to school?
I came back in 2009 and late 2009.
Fall 2009.
Yeah. And
so again, the sophomore.
Junior. As
junior.
A junior because I finished my sophomore year.
I see.
And it's because we were running out of money. In 2008, 2009, the market really crashed, and universities lost a third of their endowments. So librarians were not increasing their budgets; they were cutting their budgets. So we couldn't get any universities to pay money for the Labmeeting product, even though we could show that hundreds of researchers at Stanford were using it.
Was it subscription based, or?
We wanted to get universities to pay a subscription. So to lower the costs and try to keep the site going, I came back to school, but eventually we just kind of ran out of money and unfortunately couldn't keep the site going.
How many people were there when it stopped existing?
Well, we had to lay off everybody earlier on. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you kind of no longer attached to that failure. I mean, it's life goes on.
It's funny. You do a startup and you really identify yourself with it.
As a child, right?
Our goal was to change and accelerate the pace of science, just make it much more efficient than it is today. And it's still very, very much in the dark ages almost, in terms of how we do things. And so the problem is still there. The problem that the Labmeeting set out to solve is still there. So, I hope one day that I'll be able to solve it. Although hopefully I won't have to and someone will solve it next year. But I don't see anyone really being that ambitious to do that. And I learned a few lessons about making sure our investors trust, like we can have an open dialogue with investors who won't disappear in the first case of the market crashing, and I think that's really important. Sometimes people, I don't know, there are many times when investors would say, yes, we're really excited to invest in you, and then, a week later or a few weeks later, we stop hearing from them and they stop answering emails. And so one thing that I've learned is, the deal's never done until you have the money in the bank account.
Right. Very interesting. So
things can, these past few years have been crazy. Markets up and down. So you really can't depend on anything, because if the market crashes within a week of someone saying they're going to do something, then whole game changes.
Very true. So that was 2009, and then you had junior year here as a computer science major at that point?
Yeah,
already?
computer science.
So
I took a lot of theoretical computer science classes to have a deeper understanding of the field.
So that was spring 2010, so you kind of finishing up your third year at school, and then you decide to drop out again.
It was a good opportunity to
What happened?
Become a VP of technology of Sticky Bits Inc. in New York and work with two really smart entrepreneurs, Billy Chasen and Seth Goldstein. And it was a really great opportunity. So I said, I have to take this, see what happens, and try out living in New York as well. Learn the startup scene, meet everyone there, and I did, and it's really fantastic experience.
Yeah, I mean, so can you talk about Sticky Bits first? And so I saw the product. I used it a couple of times. So you guys basically tried. I can, let's say, go to the store and scan the barcode with my iPhone, and then it triggers, let's say, a video ad, right? Is it the idea? And any kind of information.
So the idea is barcodes. The basic idea is you want to be able to graffiti the world around you.
Yep.
And the way we do that is by attaching a barcode to a physical location and place. So if you see one of these Sticky Bits barcodes, you can pull out your phone, scan the barcode, and then you'll see a virtual wall. In the same way that human beings each have walls on Facebook, now products have walls. And if you buy the stickers, then anything can have a wall if you put a sticker on it. And that's really fun because you can see how other people interact with these same things that you're working with.
Right, so you can see, let's say, this pen has a certain wall, and then all the people who scanned, who interact with this product, who maybe bought it or any of these things. And
they can see, you can post reviews of the pen, videos of them writing love letters with the pen, photos of them kissing a pen, like that.
So how does where do you guys get data from? Like, how do you figure out that barcode is actually the Staedtler eraser, for example?
Oh, it's all crowdsourced. People scan something.
Right.
Maybe they're at a Chinese restaurant, they scan a bottle of sriracha, and then they see, oh, this isn't labeled yet, and then they add the label sriracha, and then everyone has access to that same data. So it's very much a Web 2.0 product.
Yeah. I think Billy was a guest at This Week in Startup with Jason Calacanis, wasn't he? That's the time when I actually heard about the product for the first time and then installed it immediately. And then, so spring 2011 now, right? And then
2010 to...
Right, so you fall 2010, I guess summer and fall 2010 you spent working on Sticky Bits, right? And then the same team.
Yeah, and then we decided to pivot to a new idea that seemed a little bit more promising.
And turntable is killing it.
Sticky Bits is an idea a little bit ahead of its time, probably. Google Nexus S has that what is it called? RFID reader. Near NFC technology.
NFC technology, near field communication.
And so we were using barcodes, but maybe the NFC technologies would work better. So I mean, there's still an opportunity there with Sticky Bits, but we were looking at turntable and we tried out making a new product in 2010, 2011, and that really took off. Right.
So before we kind of transition to this exciting story of turntable, what was the kind of the trigger which made you guys pivot? What did you guys schedule this meeting in advance, like this pivot meeting, or how did this happen? Right? Did you guys look at the metrics and they were not, the retention rate was low, or what was the kind of?
I mean, it just made sense as a thing to do to try out this turntable experiment and just release it in a private beta.
Right.
And when we did release it in a beta, people just really latched onto it. So it made sense to focus full time on that.
On that. I see. So you was a period when you guys worked on Sticky Bits and turntable at the same time.
Yeah.
I see. So and turntable is really killing it. It's just hockey stick growth and huge app to listen to the music with your friends, and absolutely amazing. What in terms of
people really like
yeah,
listening to music with their friends.
right, absolutely.
They love to talk about music. If you go on any room, you'll see people saying, "Oh, I've been on this site for weeks, and I discovered all this new music." My friends say how they buy new music on the site all the time.
And they, I guess, interact and chat with people, like-minded people with the
Yeah.
same kind of preferences.
Who like the same kind of room and music.
And so it's basically empowers users. They can become DJs,
Yeah.
like they were dreaming about it.
My friend Josh is really into dubstep music now, and he is.
Josh Weinstein?
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's. I don't think he has ever been into dubstep before. He's from New York, plays chess, and he's really into dubstep. And he's a DJ. He's DJ'd in a big room many times, and he's gotten a lot of points from that. And
right.
He loves it. It's on all the time. It's fantastic.
So the core product, how long did it take you to guys launch the initial version?
It only took a couple of months to develop the actual product.
What was the technology stack?
I mean, it's all on the website, like Python and things like that. But I don't know. It's the product. I don't know. What I find most interesting about Turntable is that users make up rules for themselves on the site.
Yeah.
For example, many people have instituted DJ queues, and that was not something that we were told people to do. People just wanted to do it.
Right.
And now people have other rules. Like there's some rooms where you have to start the next song with the last letter of the previous song or something like that.
Oh, interesting. So it's like some games around.
Yeah, games around it, and it's organic and it flows. It's a little bit like 4chan in terms of being organic and from the community. And I think a lot of companies right now try to enforce things top down onto their communities.
And I noticed you guys have some gamification, like game dynamics within the turntable. Like you gain points as a DJ, and so
you get new avatars.
Facebook guys, when they did this Facebook hackathon at Princeton, they used turntable, and everyone could, every hacker participating in the hackathon could kind of pick the music they want to listen. And unfortunately, I'd never been a DJ. How do I get? I mean, with like as a first time user, how do I convince people that my like music preference is legit? So it's like more like a user oriented question.
How do you become a DJ?
Yeah, how do I become a DJ essentially? Without
do people not let you go into the queue?
So I was in the queue, but my music never played.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. It's I was like visually, you guys. So there's this DJ table, like the 4 people are there with many points, and everyone else is around the table, kind of dancing and waiting for the time to shine. And this time never happened to me, unfortunately. But yeah, it's just.
I think if you play good music, people respond to that positively, and they also.
Yeah, but if it's never played, how can they respond?
Yeah, no, if it's never played, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some rooms are very egalitarian about who gets to be on the queue, and then
interesting.
You get to play good music.
So turntable is growing, and
yeah, it's a great site.
So what was the decision? Did you left the team, right?
I'm interested in working on medical problems and other things that are interesting to me right now.
I see. So last summer you spent with.
So I right now I'm in school again, and I want to work on interesting problems in artificial intelligence.
Right.
Because the driverless car project is very interesting to me. I think driverless ambulances are very interesting.
Right.
I think those save lives very directly. And it's something that I've been studying since my sophomore year. and I want to be able to contribute to that as much as I can.
So I know that your senior thesis is about is about latent directional allocation, like topic modeling. Can you describe generally what your thesis is about?
Yeah. So my goal is to make a website that takes in all the mainstream news that comes in every day,
Mm-hmm.
much of which is very negative about the Euro crisis and people dying in Syria and all these negative things, and make a different website for if you're feeling a little down and you want to be cheered up a little bit, make a separate news website that has only positive news on it. And the way to do that is it's called sentiment analysis, and what you do is you just figure out the mood in a piece of writing and what kind of mood it might convey to someone reading it. And that's a pretty hard problem for computers to understand what makes someone happy and sad. Computers we've done a good job in improving AI, but we're trying to figure out how to do that better.
Have you guys looked at Google prediction engine? Then
I think prediction has some sentiment analysis now.
Yeah,
you were telling me that. I haven't looked at that yet.
But I think research-wise, I think it's better to kind of focus on developing.
Yeah, I mean it's a relatively, it's kind of a growing field. So it's unclear yet what the best systems are to get that improved. Most of them have focused on movie reviews, since those have like stars and like Yelp reviews and things.
Interesting.
And the prediction rates are like 60-70%. Highest I've seen is 80%. So we're nowhere near like over 90 or 95% that we would probably want in most applications. So there's a lot of room to like improve there, and hopefully I can help out in some way this year.
Yeah. So, and what were your favorite courses at Princeton, computer science wise, and
so obviously artificial intelligence and related courses, because that's my main interest.
So 402, Rob Shapiro, or
when I took
data modeling with David Bly.
When I took it, Bly and Shapiro taught it, I think, and those were really interesting. There are a lot of deep ideas in there that I guess now I've already integrated into my consciousness, but when I first learned about it, I was really blown away about what computers really could do. Another class that I really enjoyed was my sophomore year. I took this course called Behavioral Economics, the graduate seminar. And in that course, basically, we just had researchers from Harvard and other places come and present papers they haven't published yet. And they just tried to, I guess, almost sell their research to the Princeton economics department. And all the papers were about behavioral economics, which is basically looking at psychology and economics and finding out where human rationality seems to be failing in economics and how to resolve that. That was very interesting. I was only sophomore, so I had a hard time reading the papers. I had to really look at the language and really understand piece by piece what it was trying to say, and I really learned how to understand research and why it happens, and like it really inspired me to really want to research. So after that, I did Labmeeting because I realized how important research was to innovation in general, and that's why I'm really interested in research now. I think it's so important for real innovation to happen. Universities have, for centuries, been the source of all these new ideas.
So it's very interesting. Like there are quite many people who go to grad school and then not many, but there are some people out there who go to grad school and then leave it prematurely to join a startup. And Joe comes from to this with a different perspective. He already has huge experience in startups, and now it looks like you're planning to do grad school.
Yeah, so I applied to Stanford and Berkeley and other schools, and hopefully I get in and I can continue my research in artificial learning and
machine learning.
Make some contribution that will really move us forward.
And this contribution, there is definitely a possibility that this company can be built around that research.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
If you look at a lot of research that happens, like good research, it's done in a way that isn't cost practical for a company, because any research is going to be doing something on the cutting edge. It's going to be using technology. Nicholas Negroponte, who's doing the One Laptop per Child.
Yep.
In the 80s, he made a touchscreen interface, and he did the pinching, the tapping, and all that.
Right.
That was 30 years ago. So he did all the same things that you see on this iPad here, but he was using a $100,000 budget to build that, right? And that you can't sell that to consumers. Consumers need something that's cheap, like that works and is cheap, and researchers are just trying to make something that works. So if I, a lot of research in computer science, I mean, it depends, obviously. A lot of systems research is directly, the whole point of that is to be directly applicable to current technology. But there is a lot of research that is pushing on the cutting edge and doesn't worry about price points. And price points are absolutely critical for business.
Right. So it reminds me of Aaron Patzer. Aaron Patzer is the founder of Mint.com, which he sold in 2009 to Intuit, and then now he left Intuit to pursue just amazing project, which is really long term, which is alternative public transportation. It's a really long term project. He kind of wants to step away from web services and software.
He's working on a new big idea. Yeah.
Exactly, very big idea, very.
I was reading this book, Startup Nation. It's about Israel's technology startup culture and scene. And the first story was about Shai Agassi, who is making A Better Place. A Better Place is a company that's taking a whole country and making it electric vehicle oriented.
Wow.
So they're building thousands of electric vehicle depots in Israel today, and next year they're going to launch and just sell thousands of electric cars throughout the country in Israel. And awesome. I think they're doing Denmark as well. And so he was working at SAP,
right.
Another software company.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he's using everything he knew, he's learned, and all the connections he's made. And he left SAP. He was probably going to be CEO, but he left, and now he's working on this huge idea that's going to change the world. And I guess Patzer's also looking at alternative transportation.
Aaron wants to solve this problem of
transportation is such a huge problem. I was talking to I was in California, and I was trying to talk to Sebastian Thrun to see if maybe I could help out with the driverless car project in any way, because it's such a big problem, transportation. You do it every day. A lot of people spend hours commuting every day. It's very unsafe. It destroys the environment. It sends money to places that might be sponsoring terrorism, and it's just like it's a huge problem.
So
it's a worthy thing to tackle.
So if we talk about the blogs and books you read, you mentioned some of the books you read. So what are the top 3 blogs you can recommend to the audience?
My blogs, so the number 1 blog is Slashdot, actually, just because I guess mostly I just want blogs that summarize everything into one small thing so that I don't have to spend too much time catching up with everything. So Slashdot's pretty good because it only has a few stories a day.
Yeah.
And is it pretty good?
Is it curated by a small community of...
Yeah, it's actually curated by 1 or 2 people.
1 or 2 people, right. So it's still this...
Okay.
So I think Dake was trying to kind of disrupt the space and kind of let everyone curate, and that's how Dake started. Yeah, interesting Slashdot. And
yeah, Dig I found was too noisy. It's hard to have very high quality signal.
Yeah,
I think Slashdot is better than almost anything else I've seen in technology.
What was the second blog?
The second blog is my blog now.
Yeah. Well, jperla.com. I definitely recommend reading it. It's actually there is a talking about your blog. There is a highly controversial post called Facebook is a Ponzi scheme, which got so many comments. Can you comment on that? Do you still think that way? And what is
that's a good question.
Right? So what was basically the premise of your
the idea post? Is basically Facebook ads do not provide very much value for the money you spend on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a very low CTR. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Very low CTR. I mean, very low percentage of people who even look at the ads. And yet Facebook charges huge amounts of money for those impressions, for those clicks. And it's way more than you should be paying. Mm-hmm. So what happens is, they're a global company, so what happens is anytime a small business finds out about Facebook ads, then they say, oh, I have to get on this hot new thing. This hot new thing is Facebook, and it's worth $50 billion. I should go use it. So they go on, they spend, you obviously can't spend $10, you have to spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars to test it out. Mm-hmm. And you spend that money, and you hardly generate any sales. And then you say, oh, I guess I just wasted a bunch of money. And that's been my experience. That's been a lot of people's experiences in using Facebook. And then they never use it again. Or maybe Facebook then doubles in value again. And then you say, oh, maybe I'll try it again. And then you waste another $1,000. Mm-hmm. And the idea that it's a Ponzi scheme comes from the analogy of, well, why are people even spending $1,000 in the first place? Why is that? Yeah. They're spending it because they're told that it's an exciting, hot company. Yeah. And why are people told that it's an exciting, hot company? Because they're making all this money from ads.
Yeah, I see. I see
so it's a little cycle there. Mm-hmm. And obviously it's not an investment, so it's not technically a Ponzi scheme, but there's no other word that describes this kind of cycle like this.
So CTR on Google definitely higher because there is a user intent when they make a query, and
search intent is very different.
It's very different from
browsing Facebook photos intent.
So, do you agree with some people say that Facebook is too good? The content is so engaging that you just don't have time, don't have any attention to look at this small ads on the right side of the page. Is it too good? Do you use Facebook?
I wasn't using Facebook for a few years, and then I realized that I was not being invited to a lot of parties, so I went back on Facebook. But I would say that it's not that people are too busy, it's just when you're looking to buy something, you want to see ads for what you want to buy.
Yeah.
If I'm looking for a new mixing machine, then I want to see ads for mixing machines. That doesn't really get in my way. It might be exactly what I want.
Right.
Because I know these people are probably a big company and trusted, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas on Facebook, I just want to find out about where my friend went in Belarus, and I don't want to join a dating website. And a lot of Facebook ads are like that.
Yeah, the ads I see is like 4-hour work week and some martial art.
Really?
Yeah, it's the book which I bought 2 years ago. I still see I still see ads for that, but I think
I see ads for T-shirts a lot.
I still respect Facebook a lot. It's definitely a great company. It feels like a collection of startups, really small teams.
So what I'm noticing is I've noticed when I was in Silicon Valley and through Facebook is that, and Eric Ries talks about this a lot. He wrote the Lean Startup. He's a really smart guy. And he talks about vanity metrics a lot. And generally, my point about Facebook as a Ponzi scheme deals kinds of with these vanity metrics. Instead of looking at the real value that a company is providing, they just kind of say, "Oh, look how many hits my website got."
But the number of active users, the users who are using the site on regular basis, it's an actionable metrics.
How do you describe an active user? Right? Usually, they describe it as visiting once in a month. Is that an active user, really?
Well, recently they hit the 500 million users at a single point.
Okay.
So this is pretty impressive metric. And
oh no, so Facebook definitely has a lot of users.
Yeah.
I think just saying that they're profitable, for example, when most of that profit isn't from sustainable or like legitimate activities. You know, if a lot of that money is from an addictive game that people are going to get sick of soon, like Zynga,
Yep.
then, you know, is that really a sustainable company that Facebook is? I don't know.
So
I don't really know what their numbers are. They're a private company. No one really does yet.
yeah, but you might go for IPO next year.
Hopefully they'll go IPO and people can see the books, and hopefully it doesn't cause a big run on the market.
Yeah, interesting. So going back to the books.
Okay.
So whatever books can you recommend? And you would like to recommend?
Yeah. So I started writing down a couple things. So I said Startup Nation. That was pretty good. I just read that. I really like Innovator's Dilemma. That's by Clayton Christensen. He's a professor at Harvard Business School. That book really made it really clear why innovation happens, why disruptions in business models happen. It's a really interesting idea. And I had heard a lot about Innovator's Dilemma and disruption, but people were just using the word disruption not in the correct way, not in the way that he was really describing it. So the basic idea is that when a new company comes into existence that with a really disruptive product, it's a product that is worse than the current product in every way that everyone cares about. But it's cheap and it's better in like other ways, probably in cheapness. And then what happens is it's cheap enough that some people use it, like some small group of users uses it. And then because now they have a market, now they improve the product, and it gets better and better, and eventually it eats out the old product.
Right.
So that's disruptive innovation.
Netflix examples of that. I mean,
yeah, Netflix is a good example because Netflix, you know, you have to wait a few days.
Yeah.
You have to wait a few days to get a DVD in the mail.
Yeah.
Whereas if Blockbuster, you can just go get it anytime you want.
And they had the guts to cannibalize the successful kind of a product to go
online.
So
yeah, so that's they didn't allow themselves to be disrupted by online play. The thing is, online isn't really a disruptive innovation because it's like strictly better than than the previous system, right? Like you get it faster, you get it equal quality, you get it anywhere.
Instant gratification. Yep.
Yeah, so so disruptive innovation isn't like a better product. It's actually a worse product in the beginning.
Right.
And that's why it's so sinister. That's why it's so difficult for a big company to like notice a threat like that, because they look at the product and they say, "Oh, that's worse than my product."
Yeah.
And then they don't realize that it's in 10 years it's going to take over. And he gives really good examples about like in the 50s and 60s there were these big department stores, I guess like Woolworths and Macy's and things that really dominated everything. And in a span of a few years, Kmart and Walmart and Target and these discount stores took over their whole business with like more inferior products and like a less inviting environment and no free gift wrapping and all these things. But in the end, it was just people wanted that more.
Interesting. So that's books from Joe. In terms of what was the most difficult period in your life? It's a really deep question, but
it was really difficult to have to be in an environment where the market's crashing and you have to lay off all of your employees.
So that was
Labmeeting. And I had to keep going on the company from credit cards and just try to get the company to try to find some revenue and keep going for our users. And that was really difficult because, you know, even at least when I had other people working in the company, there was some camaraderie there, but even I had to lay them off, and I felt bad for that. And then I was alone, and it's really tough to do that. What
was the happiest moment in your life? I mean, and I'm sure it is to come, but just a local optimum.
Princeton reunions.
Princeton reunion, very cool.
It's great to come back and just see everyone around here and just hang out, and it's a fun 3 days.
I think Princeton reunion is the biggest reunion in the world. I mean, in terms of all the alumni coming, and I think that's what I read in Wikipedia. It's like all the
probably written by Princetonians.
1975. Yeah. So
I believe that it's like tens of thousands of
just
alumni.
incredible, like 65, class of 75, and all these people.
There are 100-year-olds coming. I think still. Yeah.
That's very impressive. And you are the CTO of a very, very strong technically, and so I think we shouldn't miss the opportunity to ask you about the frameworks.
Yeah. So I actually made a Python web framework myself.
You did?
Yeah. Called Weby. It's on GitHub.
What does it do?
It's a minimalist Python web framework.
So instead of using Django or Flask, it's
so
it's a Zen
exactly
Python framework. Okay.
Django is a solid framework, but it was designed in a time, like 2005, when the whole web landscape was very different. We didn't really know what websites were going to look like in Web 2.0. And Django's designed for newspaper websites because it was created at a newspaper in Lawrence, Kansas. And it's very good if you want to make a newspaper website. But if you want to make a modern, dynamic, AJAX web application, Django's tools don't really help you that much, and they get in the way a lot. And
it has a learning curve.
There's a big learning curve of all these different components you have to learn. And in the end, even at medium scale, you have to throw them out.
Right.
A lot of other tools are a lot nicer, like MongoDB and things like that.
Non-SQL. So what is your take on this kind of non-SQL databases coming? Memcache is the key value store. MongoDB is the key value. What are the situations when startups? I think this might be a really broad question, but what are the cases when startups should pay attention to the key value store instead of SQL databases?
That's a good question. So, looking back now, I realize that probably a lot of the NoSQL movement has to do with the fact specifically that MySQL isn't good at a few things.
Which are?
Specifically, MySQL is not very good with at changing the table schema on the fly without shutting out every write and read. The fact that MySQL isn't very good at keeping everything in RAM, things like that. And then so NoSQL kind of came out as, I guess, a system that's easy for people to build. Key value stores are pretty easy to make because it's just a key and a value. There's no foreign keys or anything. So it's something that a hacker could make in relatively quickly that would be a database, and it would work, and it would overcome some of the limitations of MySQL. So one thing that you notice when you're building your app, if you've built a few apps before, is you realize, hey, I'm changing my schema every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And MySQL is no good for that, and Django doesn't have any tools for that. Just in terms of that, Rails works a little bit better because at least Rails acknowledges schema migrations. Django, I think if it's still, it doesn't have, it could still not, I don't know, I've stopped following it, but for a while, and they might have recently just added schema migrations. I don't think they still officially have anything for that. And that's something you do every 10 minutes when you start making your app. You're constantly doing that. If you're not doing that, you're not innovating. You're not doing a Web 2.0 company. You have to be responding to the users and changing a website on the fly. And that's the definition of doing a modern web company. Yep. So people made these key value stores that had flexible schemas. These key value stores that were in RAM. And RAM is really important for the web. If you're making a website and it's not in RAM, you just move it to put all your data in RAM.
Yep.
RAM is very cheap. You don't have very much data. You probably have like a gigabyte, maybe 10, 20 gigabytes of data. You can easily get a machine to hold all of that in RAM and then serve all your requests very quickly. Ideally, you want to serve your requests within tens of milliseconds. And you can do that if you just do some quick computations, even in a slow language like Python. and you just make all your requests in RAM.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys use Memcache for in Turntable?
We used any RAM-based solution. Labmeeting and everything. We just do everything in RAM, and that just makes it like.
Yeah.
I was just helping my friend Greg, who does Memrise, and he was having trouble getting the SQL queries, enough SQL queries to run efficiently, and I just said just move it to RAM, stop using my SQL on disk.
So Memrise is this startup. Greg is the winner of TechCrunch. Princeton Tiger Launch 2010.
The second year, yeah.
2010, and it's basically the site where you can use certain mnemonics to visually remember all kinds of things, right? Chinese characters.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a great site.
Great
I learned hundreds of characters in Chinese in a week.
Right. And Greg is the PhD in neuroscience, so he knows what he's doing.
He knows all the tricks.
Yeah. Very interesting. So, the last question. What is your vision for yourself as an entrepreneur, as a researcher, as a grad student? Who do you see yourself in the ideal world?
Yeah, it's definitely a question I've been thinking about for at least the past 5 years. Mm-hmm. I think I'm a lot closer to kind of a final idea of what that might be. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's going to be doing research and helping people in a very specific way. I'm very interested in learning more about medicine too, because I think that gene sequencing is becoming very cheap now. Mm-hmm. Personal genomics and personal sequencing, personal medicine. Our understanding of biology is very rudimentary right now, but with computers in the next 10 and 20 years, we are going to know a lot more about how the body works. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be able to do a lot more in terms of fixing a lot of problems. And I want myself to understand how these research processes happen. I want to be able to contribute to this technology, and I want to not just be working like 20 years ahead of everything, but I also want to encourage, like I've been doing at Princeton, more entrepreneurs to take these ideas and put them out into the real world and implement them and affect people's lives. Mm-hmm. So I see myself as continuing to be a researcher, continuing to be a teacher, mm-hmm. continuing to be a mentor, and continuing to be an entrepreneur for the rest of my life.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Joe. Okay. So that was Princeton Startup TV, episode number 5. Stay tuned.